Hi, I'm Dave Ingebretson, and Leroy Hyatt and I would like to welcome you to a very special edition of Fly Tying the Angler's Art. Today is special because of the guest we have. A while back, a very old friend of mine came through town, Dave Whitlock, and we convinced him to come into the studio and tie some flies for us. And so today we're going to tie one of those flies. You know, Dave Whitlock is probably as well known as any fly fisherman in the world. He's a fly.
It was a pleasure for me just to meet him.
Oh yeah, he's a fly fishing artist, fly tyer, lecturer, instructor. He's probably one of the foremost tyers of bass bugs that ever has been, and he's a real advocate of warm water fly fishing. He's done a lot of writing on the subject and a real innovator in terms of fly patterns, and he's going to tie one of those innovative patterns for us today. And I've known Dave for probably 25 years, and it was just so much fun to be with him and for you to meet him, and he's just an all-around good guy.
Yeah, he really is.
And so let's start out by having Dave Whitlock tie his sheep minnow for us. We've known each other, Dave, for just 25 years or a little longer, and we just don't...
Seems like a lot longer than that.
Seems like it, but we just don't get to see enough of you, so we're really happy to have you here and to show us some bass flies that you do so well. And
well, it's a good opportunity to have some fun and be with you, Dave.
It sure is.
And I guess Leroy, too.
Well, Leroy's doing all right. He's coming along.
All right.
It kind of grows on you. Yeah. And you're going to show us now the a sheep minnow pattern. This one's going to be to imitate a perch.
Yeah, Davey, this is a fly design, first of all, that I came up with to try to really closely imitate different bait fish. And I want to tie for you all this afternoon a little yellow perch. But keep in mind when I do it that this can be applied to any minnow design. It doesn't matter whether it's a shiner or a shad or a dace or what have you.
In various sizes as well as various colors.
Yeah, and I use it in fresh and salt water.
I was just going to say.
And it's a phenomenal fly.
What materials will we be using? Okay,
first of all, that we're going to use a nickel-plated 4X long heavy wire hook.
Okay, this would be what, a size 6 maybe?
Well, for tying his this afternoon, size 2.
Okay.
And then, but you can go as small as 8 or 10 all the way up to 1 or 2 aught. The materials I'm going to put on it are the saddle here is a grizzly saddle that I've dyed kind of a chartreuse green, and that's going to act as the lateral line bars of the sunfish. Then this hair here, which is which the fly got its name after, sheep hair. This is Icelandic sheep hair.
Icelandic sheep.
And it's really special stuff. You see, it's almost like marabou. See how it flows? It's wonderful in the water. We're going to use 3 colors: orange, olive, and yellow. And then to add a little sparkling flash to that lateral line area, we're going to use some saltwater pearl flashabou and some gold flashabou. And then over the top, a little bit of kind of a peacock green crystal hair. And then for the gill area here, a little bit of red dubbing.
And so you've got some eyes?
Yeah, and of course eyes are really important on minnows. So I love these new holographic eyes. They're terrific because they really sparkle and they're very durable too.
Great. Well,
and then I want to use just some 8/0 white nylon thread to that. Okay.
Let's get at it.
Ready to go? All right. First thing I want to do is bend the barb down to the hook, and I just put that in the jaws of the vise and bend it. And that takes the barb down. The next thing I want to do is this is a bend back or upswimming hook.
Okay.
And so I take and right behind the eye of the shank and bend it down just a little bit, about 5 or 10 degrees, about like that, you see.
Well, that'll make it swim straighter?
No, that'll make it swim with the hook up.
Upside down.
The other thing I want to do is increase the gape for hooking. So because a lot of the materials are going to be tied right over the top of this, even though they're soft materials, they still act as a slight deflector. So I just take the spear or the point of the hook and bend it up about 5 degrees. And that will almost double the hooking ability of it. I'll show you what I do.
I've just started tying some of those bend back hooks. I got the idea, in fact, from Lefty on his website.
Yeah.
And I really like the way they act and perform, and of course, weedless.
They're wonderful. Yeah, you can cast them. They're fish. They catch fish, but they don't catch weeds.
Right.
Anyway, I'm going to just roughen the area. The whole fly is going to be tied on the front quarter part of this shank. I like to use the nickel-plated because it's relatively corrosion-proof in salt and brackish water, but also it acts as mirror camouflage, and I really believe in that.
When you did that bend back, it's about 1/4 the length of the hook shank?
I'd say about 1/4, yeah, just about 1/4. And I'm going to just coat that over. You can either use 5-minute epoxy or this super glue we call Zap-A-Gap. And so I just take the thread now at the eye and just wrap over just to get a good foundation to tie on. over that roughened area. As soon as I get that done, the next thing I want to do is add a little tuft of this really neat sparkle dubbing here. They'll simulate the gill filaments or maybe a little bit of bleeding at the head. And just make a little tuft of that right in front of that bend. Nice little round tuft like that. Now all the rest of the fly is tied forward to that. And isn't that unusual? Because most people usually tie a lot on that. So
you sure didn't leave much room in the front, though.
Well, that's why we're using the 8/0 thread.
Oh,
See, it makes me look good. Then I take a section of this yellow hair here, and I just lay it, and I want it to come back about maybe 2/3 the length of the shank, and I cut it right there. And now here's a little trick I use to make that really come in there needed. Go right behind the eye of the hook, catch it with a couple wraps like that, and then just pull it down tight, right behind the eye. Then I'll take the Zap-A-Gap and wet the thread a little bit so that this will really bond that hair. Because I got to really make a strong foundation right there. The next thing I do is to take a little bit of the orange.
Now that's one thing we've got to say. We like to expose people to new materials and new techniques, and I'm
boy,
sure
this is new, I'll tell you.
I'm sure the Icelandic sheep isn't common around the country unless people have been exposed to these types of flies. But it would certainly pay people that are interested in tying these. Don't look for a substitute, but find the right stuff.
You can use marabou, and you can use some of the other synthetic hairs, but for the real thing, you want to look for a product called streamer hair, and it's in almost all fly shops.
Streamer hair?
Yeah, and it comes in about 20 colors.
Sheet.
Yeah. Now you can see how the profile here, I'm building a sunfish or a perch profile with that hair. See? The next thing is that I want to add a few little strands of gold flashabou, about 8 or 10 strands, again right at the nose here, because I will call this the nose, not the head, because the head's going to be back, and leave those just a tiny bit longer than the middle part of the body. Then I'll take some olive and lay right on top of that. This is going to be kind of the top of the sunfish. And I try to keep this fairly sparse, Davey. I don't want to get it real heavy, because it casts heavy and it doesn't move nicely through the water if I get this thing too materialed up.
Now we've called this both a sunfish and a perch. It's basically
you can either one, yeah. But it's basically down in our country, everything's a perch. But this is a yellow perch imitation. Next thing I want to do is take a couple of these strands of saltwater flashabou and lay right on the lateral line of this minnow. And then I just trim this at an angle like that and bend it back, and this adds a nice little amount of flash to it. And see at the camera there, see how that flashes? Of course, you'd see it on the other side in a minute when I get over there.
As soft as this material is, it must turn into absolutely nothing in the water.
It does two things. It does two things. You're right, Leroy. It moves to the water like marabou, and yet it has a wonderful transparency, and it's a lot more durable than marabou because it is a hair.
And you can still see the gill plates in there.
Yeah. Now, the next thing is that I want to add a little barred feather to the side, because the yellow perch will have a bar on it. So I just lay that right on the side. I don't strip the quill, and lay one on the other side.
Well, now didn't I see this pattern in your book on natural? I forget the title of the book.
Aquatic Trout Food Guide, Dave Whitlock.
Where you've designed specific patterns for specific life forms.
No, that book was written just before I came out with this particular fly. Anyway, so I put that on there to simulate the little barring effect of the minnow. Then we put on the head, which are merely just a couple of small round feathers. This happens to be off the back of a cock pheasant. Sometimes people call this the cheek of the feather, but you just want to put one on each side.
Now, we didn't have that in our materials list, so tell us again that that's just a little body feather from a pheasant?
It's just it's off the back of a pheasant. And I use different kinds of feathers according to what kind of a head I'm trying to imitate. If I was using a shad, I might use like a silver gray feather. So anyway, there's the head on it. The next thing I want to do is add just a tiny bit of this, and we'll be through with the tying part of it, and then we'll put on a little bit of window dressing called eyes, and we'll be through with the fly. It's really...
Well, I can't wait to try that in my smallmouth pond.
Well, I'll tell you, you have to find any place, just a little bit over the top like that, just to add a little bit of sparkle to it. Now, the next thing I want to do is just finish this head off, and I do one of my favorite quick finishes, which is just simply taking the super glue. Make sure it's waterproof super glue too. This doesn't work with just any super glue. And I just wet about 2 or 3 inches of the thread. I start at the eye and work back.
Well, that's a neat trick.
And all it
I've seen that before.
Now you can go ahead after you finish and coat it over with, if you want a shiny hard head, with some type of a hard, like 5-minute epoxy or head cement. But I don't do that. I don't need to do that for a fly. Now the next thing you do is to take a little bit of the flex cement and put a little drop right on to reinforce the feather on that side.
Now, for those viewers, this is the same stuff that Leroy has used all the time. He talks about this rubber-based cement.
Yeah.
That's basically the tennis shoe repair stuff thinned with toluol or some of the other commercially typed, toluene, some of the other commercial products like that are available.
I got a little bit too much on there, so I just take this feather and kind of dampen the eye out that way. Now the next thing I do is take some of the rubber cement, and I'm going to put just a little dab right on the eye. Now the eyes, these holographic eyes, come with a sticky material, Leroy. But the thing is, it's not that sticky. So by adding a little bit of this,
just making it more durable, and
it's a lot more durable. Yeah, that eye won't come off. Some people say, "Well, how long will that eye stay on there?" I usually say, "Well, after the fly's gone, the hook's still there. I mean, the eye's still there." Yeah. So, boy, that dresses that little fly up.
Oh, yeah.
Put that on there. Let me get to the other side, the audience's side. I think you'll understand what I'm talking about.
Well, that really does shine.
You can just see what that thing's going to do when it's wet.
It has an unbelievable action in water. It casts nice. It doesn't carry a lot of water with it.
Sure.
And it's almost 100% snag proof. Now, here's what I wanted to show you. Take and run your finger just down the top of that real carefully. Just go ahead and run it on down there. See how that catches?
Oh, yeah.
Because that little point angled up that way.
Sure.
Where a bend back with bucktail or something over the top that hadn't been bent up, it acts almost like a snag guard. But that won't. And how it acts as a snag guard is because the hook keels up. But anyway, that little yellow perch, I guarantee you, any self-respecting smallmouth or largemouth or walleye or anything else that eats yellow perch like pickerel or northern pike would eat that. Plus, there's a lot of places like out in Montana and some of those lakes where they have unwanted yellow perch, and the brown trout really feed big on it.
Or you can tie it in trout-type colors and fish it as a trout imitation, too, because they're cannibalistic. A big brown will gobble up its own young.
That's right. You can try it in any, I originated it to imitate the threadfin shad to catch big stripers and trout with in Arkansas, but I found it works everywhere.
Great fly.
Yeah. Good looking fly.
Great fly.
I like that better than marabou even.
Oh, yeah.
It really is nice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, the pattern for the Whitlock sheep minnow was the hook. We used a streamer hook. You can tie it any size, from size 2 to 6, 4X long. He used a stainless steel hook. Yellow thread, used pink dubbing for the gills. The body and the head was orange, olive, and yellow Icelandic sheep hair or streamer hair. The lateral line was chartreuse-dyed grizzly saddle hackle with a little silver flashaboo over that. The back was peacock green flashaboo. The cheeks were ringneck pheasant body feathers with the holographic eyes. All right, next we're going to tie for you a steelhead fly, a very simple but effective pattern. This is called the burlap pattern for good reason. Why don't you tell us why?
Very good reason. The tail will use a dark deer hair. The hackle material will be a soft hackle. This is a grizzly hen hackle. You could also use just any grizzly soft hackle. And then the way the fly gets its name, this is just a string out of a burlap sack. The thread we'll use is a 6/0 tying thread. I'll put a size 4 in the vise. I've already pinched the barb on it. You can tie these a lot of different sizes. I've seen them tied all the way up to a 1/0, which is an extremely large for a steelhead fly, but sometimes when the water's real cold, you need that large fly to get down a little deeper. I've dressed out whole hook shank. I'll take a small clump of this dark deer hair, get that under fur out, So many times I've seen people try to stack deer hair with the underfur in it.
Yeah.
It won't do it, or not well.
Well, the beauty of this fly, I think, is a lot of very effective flies. It's simple to tie.
Very simple to flat tie. Now I'm going to keep this tail on the short side. Got one broken one there. I'll just lay it in, soft loop, pinch, pull down. Once more, pull down. Keeps everything right on top. Now I'm going to go forward with this just to get all those bound down. What that's going to do is give me a smoother body to lay that burlap on. And then I'll go back harder to get it all bound in place. Then just a string out of an old burlap sack. That's all it is.
This is nice stuff because it's, of course, very durable, but
very.
It's got a rough appearance to it, and you're going to get a shaggy body.
And it shows a distinct rib to it, too.
Yeah.
It's just really a neat pattern. You can also take this, I've seen this especially in trout flies, when the fly's already tied. Take a razor blade and just lightly score each side. Those little
I've done it
fibers
with a hacksaw blade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It just stands right up in the air.
Oh, yeah. Just score it with a hacksaw blade.
But you can see each wrap of that string as it goes on. Plus, when this gets wet, it will turn darker.
You mentioned the trout fly. You know, there is a burlap nymph that's almost
Yes, there
exactly the
is.
same.
It sure is.
Tie it on a trout-sized hook and call it a burlap nymph, and you've got another fly.
The hardest part of this fly is getting the string out of the burlap. And tie it down. Then we'll take one of these soft hackles. And this is a little bit of a larger fly. I'll try to find one with a little bit wider fibers on it.
You know, we've said it before, but I'm a real fan of those soft hackles.
Oh, I love it.
The capes
love it.
or the saddles, because they're inexpensive, and for wet flies, you can't beat the action.
No. That fly just works like crazy. Then we'll take a few wraps of this.
And again, you don't want too many.
No, absolutely not. And I stroke them back as I go through.
What are you making, about 3 turns there?
I made about 2.5,
2.5, yeah.
Then I'll clip this off. And then as I wrap backward on that just to build a little head, I'm going to go back on top of that just slightly, which will help lay it down just a little.
And you've left enough room there at the eye for a riffle hitch if you want to.
Go ahead and put a whip finish on it. I just love a soft hackle fly.
Oh, yeah.
They just really work so well. Get a drop of cement on it. Now again, if I were going to fish this fly for myself, it's definitely not necessary, but I just like the way it looks. I would let this coating of head cement dry, and then I'd put one more on it.
Sure. I like a nice glossy head on a steelhead fly.
Just make it look like a little marble, yeah. But you can see where it gets its name now, the burlap fly. It's that segmented body looks real well. Deer hair tail, burlap string for the body, and a soft grizzly hackle for the hackle.
Well, Leroy, that was a very simple but effective steelhead pattern.
Sure is.
Now we've got another very simple but effective trout pattern, very popular in either the lakes or the stream. I especially like it in lakes, and it's the Carey Special.
Developed in Washington.
Developed here in Washington, and there's 1,000 variations in terms of the body color.
And this will be a variation.
Yeah.
We'll use a tail of the greenish brown section of a rump, pheasant rump, and the body will be brown chenille. The hackle will be the same greenish pheasant rump.
Basically, the variations are in the body color.
Oh yes, they'll use peacock curl.
But they're all tied with the same rump feathers.
Absolutely. Now I've put a size 10, or a size 8 I mean, hook in the shank. I've already dressed the thread on it. I want to take just a very few fibers off of this pheasant and tie it down.
Do you want those sort of medium length, that you don't want real long?
No, I don't want it as long as that long shank hook that I have in there. No, not at all. Then I'll take a piece of the chenille, strip some of that off. And with chenille, you can do it 2 ways. You can tie it in like this, wrap the whole thing to save the lump, or you can just pull a little bit of that chenille off the string and tie it in.
You know, on
It'll
an
do the
earlier show,
same.
we tied my favorite of all time lake patterns, the green weenie, the western green weenie,
Which is
just the
similar.
Carey special using a green
You
fur
bet.
dubbing, originally seal fur dubbing for the body. But it's the same pattern.
Now, I like this fly. I use this fly mostly in peacock body, but this brown chenille is also very effective.
Well,
I've also
the point
seen
is tied any color you want.
Oh, and they've changed this pattern around so often just to fit material they have or water or whatever. I've also seen it tied with olive chenille.
Yeah, I think the secret is
thing.
these long green rump feathers.
Any soft hackle just works very well. Now I'm going to tie the hackle in by the tip, strip this off just a little bit, clip that off.
I don't know why, but I always tied in by the butts.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, to me, if I tie it in by the tip this way, it lets the feathers flow back.
It does lay back
normally
nicely,
a little bit.
yeah.
And again, whatever your personal preference is. Now, I did leave part of this stem on here to kind of use as a little handle.
Sure.
Then as you go around, you just keep it going that same direction, stroke it back.
Now, the funny thing is, I always thought of, well, in my case, the green weenie, I always thought of the Carey special as a lake fly.
Oh.
Never used it in a stream at all.
Oh.
Until one day we were up, my son Jeff and I were up on the St. Joe River, and he was standing up on kind of a precarious position out in the river up on a rock, and just picking up to cast, and I saw him hit a good fish, and he struck so hard and the fish pulled back so hard he went right in the river and fought the fish, kind of a scene from A River Runs Through It, and ended up with a very, very nice cutthroat out of the Joe, maybe a 16-incher, and I said, "What are you using?" And he said, "A Carey special."
Yep, there you are.
And it surprised me.
There you are. Again, just a very simple soft hackle. That fibers off that hackle just work and kick and go on. Dragonflies,
Yep.
damselflies.
With a real plump body, I think they probably do take it for a
Yes.
dragonfly nymph.
And also weight the fly.
Yeah.
Most of them, I think, probably are weighted, but it's just, again, whatever your...
But I think since it can be so effective in so many different body colors, it seems to me that the real secret of its success is in those long green pheasant
agree.
rump tail feathers.
I agree.
Rump feathers that move so.
Well, like with your green weenie, the tail on this fly may be totally unnecessary.
Well, I
but
don't
it's
use a
just-
tail on the green
yeah.
weenie, yeah.
But there's a variation of a Carey special. This happens to be a brown one. Again, the colors could go whichever way you wanted. Green rump pheasant tail for the tail and hackle. Brown chenille for the body.
Well, I've really enjoyed this show. I enjoyed what Whitlock did.
with Dave.
You know, with that sheep minnow, there were so many innovative things. One was the bend back style of tying.
Yes.
Now, as I told Dave on the show, I had recently learned that from Lefty, and I've tied a few of those flies, and I really like the bend back style of tying. We learned about the Icelandic sheep hair.
Which I'd never seen
I had
before.
not seen it
No,
before,
never had.
and since then I have bought some, and I am really excited about tying it. Now, I had a friend in Texas sent me a couple of bass flies that were tied with that, and I didn't know what it was.
Oh.
And unfortunately, I lost them in the weeds.
Oh, no.
And so now I know what it is, and now I can't wait to tie with those.
Sure.
In addition to that, we tied a very simple and effective burlap steelhead fly, and then what was almost a variation of that, the Carey special, a good lake fly, and stream fly. So I think we've covered a lot of ground tonight, given people a lot to think about, a lot of special
variables.
things to try,
You bet.
and a great time with Dave Whitlock. So you tune in again next week. Thanks for watching, and I think we'll have some excitement for you next week, too. Good night.
Dave and Leroy have produced 2 90-minute videos covering new and exciting tips on how to make your fly tying better and more effective. They introduce you to everything you need as a beginner and demonstrate helpful techniques for intermediate tiers. Fly Tying Techniques Volumes 1 and 2 are available by calling 1-800-883-0124. Cost of each video is $28.95 plus shipping and handling, or get the 2-volume set for just $52.95. You can also order the programs in this series. Each 90-minute videotape includes 3 programs for just $22.95 plus shipping and handling. To order Fly Tying, the Angler's Art videos and techniques tapes, call 1-800-883-0124.